Last season's big story, Cinderella story, the Indiana Hoosiers. This is a team that won 3 games. Curt Cignetti comes in, he cleans house, he brings in a bunch of transfer guys, production over potential, he says, and all of a sudden, this basketball school is in the college football playoff. And I think a lot of people are asking questions. It says, a lot of people want to know, all right, who's going to do it this year? Indiana did it last year. Who's going to be that team that maybe goes from worst to, not quite first, but you get what I'm trying to say with that specific analogy. Or who's the team that maybe goes 4 or 5 win improvement and gets into the college football playoff? I want to make one thing perfectly clear, and this is probably pretty easy to say right now. I don't think there's going to be a team that's going to go worst to first. I don't think there's going to be a team that's going to have like a 7 or an 8 win jump, because the teams that fit into that right now are Purdue, sitting there at 1-11. It's the first year of Barry Odom. There's a bunch of transfers stopped. If you've heard me of this before, the state of Indiana, I thought Indiana, like last year, what they were bringing in with Cignetti, with his track record and how he can quickly turn around a team, I predicted them to go to 6-6. I thought that they would take a jump, but it's clearly they took a bigger jump than even I anticipated. With Purdue, I think it's going to be a little bit of a slower climb, but I certainly believe in what Barry Odom can provide there in West Lafayette, Indiana. Like Northwestern is a team that I think has some pieces. Preston Stone, Joseph Hyman, some players coming back on defense. I think this is a team that can get to a bowl game, but not to that 9 or 10 win level, certainly. And I'm pretty down on Maryland. I'm not a big fan of where Maryland certainly sits in the grand scheme of things right now. So now that we've got that out of the way, the thing I'm looking towards is like, who's a 5 win or a 6 win regular season team that can make that jump into like a 10-win college football playoff type of place. So I look at some of these 5 or 6 win teams, like Wisconsin sitting there at 5 wins, and they have just an absolute murder show of a schedule. Like, that's not going to happen. Like, Wisconsin is a team that, like, if they had a more manageable schedule, maybe they could win 8 games. Maybe they can win 9 games. But that's not the case. It could be 2 consecutive years sitting back home during bowl season for Luke Fickell and the Badgers. There's a realistic chance of that happening. You look at Michigan State, who won 5 games. I know their schedule is fairly manageable, but I kind of look up and down the roster, and I'm not there. I can't talk myself quite into it for them to make that type of jump. Jonathan Smith is a builder. These are things that incrementally get better over time with a Jonathan Smith program like he was able to achieve over there at Oregon State. UCLA, I mentioned them before. I know they've got the superstar quarterback, but I don't think he has that much around him. There's going to be a lot of pressure on Nico to be able to do that. I'm looking for a little bit more of a complete team and a better schedule situation. USC is a team that's sitting out there. That was a 6-win team. That's a maybe. That's a maybe, because like outside of their games, you look at Notre Dame, you look at Oregon. I mean, you look at Michigan is at home, Illinois. I mean, maybe they can like split some of those games and get to 9-3 or 10-2. But man, going on the road to Illinois, Notre Dame, and Oregon, that's going to be really tough. And USC did not win close games last season. If they want to be able to make that improvement, that big jump under Lincoln Riley, they're going to have to learn to win some of these close games, and they didn't get a lot of experience doing that last season. I know some folks are going to hem and haw over this. When I was putting this graphic together and I was preparing this show, I was hem and hawing on the inside because I've said it this offseason. I'm like, well, I got to wait and see with Nebraska. I got to wait and see because, man, I've drank the Kool-Aid these past couple of off seasons, and I'm just sick of drinking the Kool-Aid, frankly. They got to go out there and prove it. But then when I'm putting this segment together, I'm like, who could be that team? And I'm like, it could be Nebraska. It actually could be Nebraska. If this is a team, once again, they got to kick these habits. They got to kick the habits from the Frost era. They got to kick some of these habits that have carried over into the early Matt Rule era as well. But let me explain why I think maybe Nebraska could be that team that was in the middle of the Big Ten last year that can maybe make that jump all the way towards maybe a 9 or even a 10-win season, maybe even a college football playoff berth right now. Let's start with their schedule. Their schedule is a big reason for it. This is a favorable schedule for the Nebraska Cornhuskers. They have a neutral site game against the Big 12 Cincinnati Bearcats. But outside of that, when you look at true road games, they have a really tough one in November at Penn State. But their toughest true road game outside of that is an October 18th meeting against Minnesota. And those have been really, really tight games over the past few years. Michigan's at home. USC is at home. Iowa is at home. A tricky Michigan State game. All of those games are at home. You don't have Ohio State on the schedule. You don't have Oregon on the schedule. You don't have Illinois on the schedule. Like, okay, I kind of took a second look at this thing. I'm like, this is maybe actually shaping up pretty good for Nebraska right now. The thing about Nebraska, that's the schedule. Let's talk about personnel. The thing about Nebraska, I know Matt Rule came in his press conference. We want to be physical. We want to be a Big Ten football team. But goddamn, you got yourself a 5-star quarterback in his second year, and you got an offensive coordinator that's known for kind of opening up their offense in Dana Holgorsen. And you've got some weapons on the outside that I think really play into maybe this narrative that say, hey, maybe Nebraska could really open up this thing a little bit. And they're not as deep in the running back position once you get beyond Emmett Johnson. The passing game needs to emerge. Dylan Raiola needs to turn into that savior quarterback. Like, this offseason is like a huge offseason to really determine what are we going to see out of Dylan Raiola. What kind of quarterback is he going to become, not only at Nebraska, but within his college career? Can he reach those high expectations that he had coming out of Buford, Georgia? I think there's some good pass catchers. I think there's some guys that can get open for Nebraska, like Ja'Cory Barney had 443 yards last year. Carter Nelson was recruited as a tight end out of Ainsworth, Nebraska, but they really moved him over to wide receiver last season. Janarian Bonner is another guy that was on this team last year. Like Dane Key transferring over from Kentucky, 715 yards and 2 scores last year. And Isaiah Hunter from Cal, 578 yards and 5 scores with the Golden Bears. Like, I kind of start to look at what this team might be and what this offense might look like if this is an offense that can open it up, balance things out with this run game. And man, this offensive line has got to be better. This offensive line has to stay healthy, and this offensive line has got to be better. Like, if those things happen, this is a Nebraska team and a Nebraska offense that could maybe move the ball and do some things. The defense, you know, their front seven, there's a lot of change certainly up front. Like I've stated my reasons before why I'm not the biggest believer in Nebraska for 2025, but if Dylan can take the step up, if this passing offense really evolves like what we saw against Wisconsin last season, I know Wisconsin wasn't the greatest defense in the world, and specifically in the secondary last year, but if this is a passing offense that can really come alive and maybe the defense is just good enough, middle of the road, maybe that's enough to get through this schedule and get to that 9 or 10 win level. I know, Nebraska fans, you are sick of hearing about it this time of year, but that's the team that I was able to come up with in this specific commentary as to maybe who could be that Indiana team that could take a big, significant jump up in the win column this season.